Hi everybody, Sean Holsinger here from holsingersflyshop.com and Posted Outdoors. Today the fly I'm going to tie for you is in my awesome Possum Nymph. I saw this in one of my catalogs that we buy our supplies from that uses Australian possum fur. It's a really nice fly. I fish it as a wet and also as a nymph. Usually I fish it on my nymph leader, but sometimes I'll even swing it as a wet fly. It works really well. Remember, if you like what you see here, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and all the supplies we have for this you can find on our website at holsingersflyshop.com. Okay, for the awesome Possum Nymph, this is a really neat nymph. I'm going to use Australian possum fur. It's pretty nice stuff. I use it for dubbing sometimes. I use it for this nymph. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, I'm just going to pinch a piece of it. Not a whole lot, about that much. I'm going to pinch a piece of it and cut it off down close to the base of the fur. Okay, then that part that I pinched off there, I'm going to take it and I'm going to grab it by the tips. You see all the guard hairs sticking out here. I'm going to grab it by the tips and I'm going to take all this fluff and pull all of this out. Now I'm going to set that aside because that's going to be my dubbing here in a second. So I want to get this down to just the guard hairs to make my tail. You see, I just keep pulling out all these little soft fuzzy hairs there. That's what I want out of there. Okay, now that I got it pretty much clear, I'm down to the guard hairs sticking out. This is going to be the tail on this fly. Actually, I need to start my thread on there first, I guess, to tie it down. I'm going to use brown thread on this. It's a size 12, 1560 Daiichi wet fly hook. And I'm using a 7/64 multi-hued rainbow bead. Okay, now that I have my thread started on there, I'm going to take this tail that I just made and I'm going to pinch it down. Now, you see, I don't really want it no longer than the length of the hook, hook shank, okay? Just going to take and pinch it down, like always, soft loop and then tighten it down. Tie it back to the bend of the hook. Okay, and there's my tail on this fly. Very simple tail. And I'm going to take and trim all this extra off here. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to add on this fly is I'm going to add some tinsel to it. I'm going to add two pieces actually. I'm going to add some gold French oval tinsel. I use this a lot in my videos, you see. And then for a little bit of extra flash on this, I'm going to use a piece of rainbow crystal flash. I'm just going to tie it down too. Just gives it a little bit of extra flash. This fly, the way I'm tying it here is the way I saw the pattern tied in a magazine. I can't remember which magazine. But I've actually caught a fair amount of fish on this. It works really well. I'm going to take a little bit more off of my possum hide here. Get a couple more of those guard hairs back into this dubbing that I pulled out the last time. I'm going to use that, the stuff that I trimmed off, I'm going to use that as my dubbing. Okay, just going to try to mix these guard hairs in here pretty good. Give it a little bit darker color. Sometimes I have this in black too, and sometimes I will take and mix the natural color with the black to make it darker. I really like working with this awesome possum stuff. It's awesome dubbing. I mean, it really works nice for dubbing. If you need, like, I prefer it over hare's ear. If I'm tying a hare's ear nymph, I will tie the hare's ear with awesome possum fur. Okay, then I'm going to take that dubbing and I'm just going to dub it on the thread. It's a little bit softer, nicer to work with. I think that's why I prefer it over the hare's ear. Okay, then I'm just going to start it at the back. I'm going to wrap it up and build a nice little body there. Not real thick, like I always say. Build it about, close to 3/4 of the way. Okay. Then I'm going to take first I'm going to take the crystal flash, and I'm going to wrap it up. I'm just going to wrap it like the regular tinsel. And this is just to give it a little bit extra flash. And tie that off. Now I'm going to go the opposite way with my gold. And I'm not trying to overlap or anything. This is just to make this thing flashy. Give it a little bit extra flash. Okay, wrap my gold tinsel down. Okay, now I'm not sure what in the original pattern the person used for the hackle here. I prefer, you always see me tying with the Brahma hand from Whiting. I love the saddle hackle, the Brahma saddle hackle. You get the speckled look. It just really makes a nice mottled look on the hackle. So like I always do here, I'll pinch the tips, hold the tips, peel the hackle fibers back, get them out of your way so you can take and tie this down. Tie these down. And then trim it off here. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to make a couple wraps of the hackle. And I always like to try not to over wrap and trap your hackle fibers down. I always like to pull them back as I wrap. About 3 wraps here. And then I'm going to tie that down. Okay, now to fish this fly, I fish it as both a wet fly and a nymph. I'll fish this on my nymph leader, down on the bottom, whatever. And I'll swing this as a wet fly. And I've caught a lot of fish. We go to Kettle Creek every year, and it's a big freestone creek, and I'll fish up there with wet flies a lot, and this is one of my go-to flies up there. Okay, now that I have that on, now I'm going to add a little collar in front of it with some ice dubbing. I'm going to use peacock ice dubbing. Dub a little bit of that on the string. Not a lot, just enough to build up a nice collar. Too much. Wet your fingers if it doesn't twist on there real nice. I used wax, but you still have to sometimes wet your fingers to get it to stay. And then I'm just going to wrap just a little bit over top of that hackle to lay it back a little bit. And try not to get this too big. You don't want it to overdo the back here. I got that pretty nice there. And then make a couple wraps there behind your bead. And then I half hitch it off. Anytime I tie with a bead like this, I usually tie about 4 or 5 half hitches right behind it. And that's all that's to tying this fly. Really, really neat fly. Good use of that awesome possum fur. And like I said, I fish this both on my nymph, and I'll fish it as a wet fly. I'll swing it as a wet fly. Give it a try.